Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Gridiron 2023. Dr. Ron Poniewasz and Professor Larry Kelly are your Gridiron team for this week and for the whole season. And Larry is a member of the Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George law firm and the Shenango varsity baseball coach. Larry, welcome aboard. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, my brother. It's another big week coming up of high school football. We had some outstanding performances this week. And I'm glad I don't have to be the one picking the athlete of the week, because this week had to be tough, because there were many candidates who were outstanding this week. And you're going to tell us about a guy who did it on both sides of the ball, Kolton Carlson.
Yeah, Kolton Carlson is our athlete of the week. We will start our show with that, followed up by a topic in between, and then our schedule portion. And as Larry said, it is Laurel's Kolton Carlson. Carlson is a 6'1", 185-pound sophomore running back linebacker, and it seems like a lot of the kids on the Laurel team are sophomores. They have a young team, and he had 3 carries for 17 yards, 6 receptions for 99 yards, 2 total touchdowns on receptions of 18 and 40 yards, as well as 10 tackles. And Larry, he was all over the field with 5 sacks on Friday night in a 35-12 win over Northgate.
That's a TJ Watt performance from the defensive end. 10 tackles, 5 sacks is impressive. 6 catches for 99 yards, 2 TDs. And this Laurel team, as we talked all year, is getting better. And he's one of the reasons they're having success. That was a big win that they had against Northgate, because Northgate was playing some good football up until that point. And Laurel kept their hopes alive with that win. And you know, when you have a young man who can do it on both sides of the ball, 6 catches for 99 yards, you know, Laurel rushed the ball for 255. But as we talked all year, they needed to be a little more balanced. And in this game, they were. They had 353 total yards, and much of it was because Kolton Carlson had 6 for almost 100. So, you know, we talk about it all the time. I still believe you got to run the football to win high school football games. And let me give a little shout out to one of my friends. You know, Jeff Smiley is a personal trainer out in Laurel, and I know he trains the Laurel Spartans. He also trains the Neshannock Lancers, and he trains, you know, with that jump straps, those big and strong, tough kids who have quick feet and explosive power. And those 2 teams rushed the ball last week for almost 500 yards. So, you know, championships are won in the off season. We say that all the time as coaches. It's commitment. Those guys that are willing to commit when they don't have to, right? Nobody's holding a gun on you to make you go and grind out jump stretch at Jeff Smiley's place or do whatever else you're doing to build your body. But when you do it, it pays dividends. Championships are won when the lights aren't on, right? Championships are won in the off season when you're totally committed and you're willing to pay the price. Everybody wants to be a champion, Ronnie. Not everybody's willing to pay the price. Laurel Spartans, the Neshannock Lancers, they're starting to impose their will on people. And Kolton Carlson, tremendous night on both sides of the ball. Congratulations.
Yeah, that win moved Laurel to 1-2 in the Big 7 and 2-5 overall. How big of a win that was for Laurel, that's our second topic that we will have. So we will dive into that one a little bit more in our second topic. Carlson for the year, 14 catches for 203 yards. He now has 3 touchdowns. And Larry, you know, as you mentioned, you know, just flying around all over the ball on both sides of the ball. And he's just a sophomore. That's one of the biggest things for that program.
They're playing a lot of sophomores, Ronnie. And you know, Coach Cooper has said that all year. These kids are young. They're playing a lot of young guys. And as we projected and predicted, week in and week out, this team is getting better. And that's what happens when you play young people. Experience, there's no substitute for it. These young guys are starting to get experience. And, you know, an impressive performance against a good Northgate team. And again, they ran the ball for 255 yards, threw it for about another 100. You know, that's an impressive performance. And I tip my hat to them, to the coaching staff. You know, good coaches. Listen, I've been doing this. I coached for 25 years. good coaches, your team gets better as the season progresses. You know, in football, you don't want to be at your best in the first week of the season. You want to be at your best in the last week of October and that first week of November. And, you know, it's hard to continue to make kids believe when they're not winning. It's hard to get them to continue to work hard when they're not having early success. This Laurel team did not have early success. They lost a lot of tough games early on, but credit to the coaching staff, credit to the team for continuing to work hard, both now and in the off season, and it's starting to pay dividends. And, you know, this Laurel team, as the season moves forward, is only going to get better.
Absolutely. Okay, Kolton Carlson is our athlete of the week, a Laurel sophomore running back linebacker for his 17 yards rushing on 3 carries, his 6 receptions for 99 yards with the 2 touchdowns of aerials of 18 and 40 yards, as well as 10 tackles and 5 sacks. Come on back, because we are going to talk a little bit more about Laurel football and most specifically the postseason chase for 3 teams out of that conference. We'll do that next, right here on Gridiron.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other, be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
Hey, we're back with you here on Gridiron, and we're going to talk the Big 7 conference, and in particular, the postseason push for these teams. Right now, Southside Beaver is in first place, well, sharing first place with Union. Both are 3-0. Southside is 7-0 overall. Union is 6-1. Union's lone loss is a non-league loss to Cornell. And then, so you figure those 2 teams will comprise 1 and 2. That'll get figured out next week when Southside visits Union. Third place, right now we have a 2-way tie with Rochester and Northgate both sharing third place at 2 and 2. And Rochester and Northgate actually play next week. Rochester has Clairton in non-league matchup this week. So that'll get figured out as far as third place next week, more than likely. It's at Rochester. Win or lose, who do you think wins? I have Rochester with a win.
Yeah, Rochester's a good football team. They have a lot of pedigree. Gene Matzuk, Shenango grad. You know, I actually covered Gene when he was in high school, so I've known him a long time. And they've developed a culture down there at Rochester of success, and those guys, they know how to win. So I like Rochester, you know, and that makes it tough for Laurel because Rochester holds the tiebreaker over Laurel if they end up tied.
Okay, and Rochester last game of the year goes to Southside Beaver. Win or lose for Rochester?
Southside Beaver is a good team. So, you know, right now as I'm sitting here, I think Southside Beaver is next to Union is the best team in the conference.
Okay, so we both agree that Rochester will finish league play at 3 and 3. Let's go to Northgate. Northgate also is 2 and 2, and Northgate plays Union this week. I think we can both agree that Union will get the job done and beat Northgate.
The Scotties got it rolling, brother. Another tremendous week last week. 486 total yards for the Scotties last week. Braylon Thomas, 13 for 17, 305 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 2 passing. The Scotties are rolling.
Okay, and since we both agree that Rochester will beat Northgate, Northgate finishes conference play with a 2 and 4 record. That's where we go with that one. All right, Laurel is 1 and 2. They've played a non-league game. They've played their non-league game so far this year. That was the Berlin Brothers Valley 27-0 loss to them. So all they have left now for Laurel is conference games. First conference game is Friday night at Southside. That's not going to be a picnic for sure. I don't know that they come away with a win, so I'm marking them down for a loss at Southside. But I do think they'll give Southside some fits.
Laurel's getting better every week, but Southside and Union are the cream of the crop in that conference.
Okay, so we're marking them down for a loss there. I don't even think this is a discussion. Laurel will beat Summit Academy next week, so that'll be a win for Laurel. And then here's the big one, Larry. Last game of the season, regular season, Laurel visits Shenango. And Shenango is 1-3 in league play. Who do you got winning this one?
I can't pick against the Wildcats. A bunch of my guys play on that football team. It should be a good game. I can tell you this from my experience coaching at Shenango. This is a rivalry. I don't know that Shenango has a bigger rival in the Tri-County than Laurel. When we used to play those baseball games, man, they were hotly contested. The fans were into it on both sides. And, Shenango's getting better also. So that should be a really, really good game. And obviously, Laurel has to win to have any chance, right, to catch that third spot.
Yeah. All right. So you're marking Laurel down for a loss against Shenango, correct?
I can't pick any other way, my brother. I get a paycheck from Shenango at the end. It's not a big one, but I get one. So you understand. I have to support my Wildcats.
Okay. Larry Kelly goes Shenango. Ron Poniewasz is going Laurel for that game. So that would put Laurel, if they win 2 out of 3, that'll go 3-3 for Laurel, 3-3 for Rochester. Northgate is 2-4, and Shenango has at Summit on Saturday afternoon. Naturally, that's going to be a Shenango win. Next week, we won't even worry about it because that's their non-league game against Leechburg. And then you say they will beat Laurel. So that's a loss for Ron and a win for Larry. So that puts, I have Shenango at 2-4. I have Shenango out. I have Laurel in, and you have it flipped. You have Shenango in and Laurel out.
Are there 4 spots in the playoff or only 3? Oh, there's 4. Okay. And does head-to-head, if both teams tie, I think in the Whippeal, I believe both teams make it. It's not like a head-to-head competition where one will be eliminated.
No, that's basketball. This is football.
Yeah.
So if Laurel beats Shenango, Laurel's in, Shenango's out. If Shenango beats Laurel, Shenango's in, Laurel's out. It's head to head.
So it's going to be it'll be a big game. That'll be a great game, and it'll be one where there'll be a lot of interest. There'll be a lot of interest.
Northgate could have locked up a playoff spot on Friday night by beating Laurel, and they did not get the job done. So now they're really in a bind because they're not going to beat Union. I kind of doubt they'll beat Rochester. We're in agreement there. So that's going to push them to 2-4. Yeah. So, and Laurel's, we have Laurel. I have Laurel getting to 3-3. So Laurel's going to probably make up the 4th spot. Rochester, being that I have them beating Northgate, will be the 3rd spot. And so basically our only difference there is you have Shenango in, I have Laurel in.
Yeah. And again, it will be a really, really good game. Shenango and Laurel, last game of the year. Is the game at Shenango? Is that what you said?
It is at Shenango, correct.
Yeah, that'll be a really good game. Both teams are young. Shenango's young too. They're playing a lot of young guys. Laurel's playing a lot of young guys. Shenango's been getting better. They kind of tripped up in that game against Northgate. That was a game that I think they certainly could have won, and I think we're expecting to win. And it was a statistically kind of close game, but a couple bounces went Northgate's way, they win the game. So the Laurel Shenango game for a playoff spot be a great night to be at Shenango and watching Tri-County football.
All right, now the one key component here is while we're different in terms of who we think is going to make up that 4th spot, it's universal in the fact that both teams are young. So assuming no matter who makes up that 4th spot, what does that mean for their future? You're going to get to the postseason. It may or may not go very well in terms of how many games you play, but that experience and getting to that playoff game, getting on the bus and being with your team and having that for next year, what does that do for
well, no, that's a big deal. Nothing succeeds like success. But let me go back to something that I started with. Champions are made in the off season. What are you willing to do between now and next football season to be ready and get yourself ready to become a champion? That's the question, or, in high school sports, Ronnie, if you're not willing to commit 10 months a year, and I don't care what the sport is, you're probably going to be behind the 8 ball, because there are teams willing to do it. I just talked about, Nishanik and Laurel working out at Jeff Smiley's place, doing that jump stretch, and look what they're doing. They're dominating the line of scrimmage, so whoever wins this game, whoever makes the playoffs, if they're willing to pay the price, everybody wants to win. Not everybody's willing to pay the price to do it. But if they're willing to do it in the offseason, if they're willing to pay that price, then yes, being in the playoffs this year and experiencing playoff football will be very important. But if you're not willing to pay that price, it's not going to make much of a difference, because there are teams in this league and in the WPIL that are willing, and it's 10 months a year, man. They're grinding it out. And if you're not willing to do that, you're going to be behind the 8 ball. You're going to be a little bit behind the pack.
Yeah. And for a team like Shenango that's had a lot of injuries, I believe when they played Union, they were missing 8 two-way starters in that game. So you just don't know what their health is like right now. That Northgate loss that they had a couple weeks ago, 20-13, when we both thought they would go on the road and beat Northgate, that was a Northgate team that they hung 75 on last year, and they got beat this year 20-13. Now, I saw Northgate last week. They're an athletic team, and Laurel took it to them. Laurel got behind 12-7 and ended up winning 35-12. And like Brian Cooper said after the game, we've been working hard, and, we're just looking for it to pay off, and it finally happened. So, that's what I'm.
He talked about playing a complete game. And again, they ran the ball for 255 yards. Ben Hannon rushed it for 173 yards, and I think he toted it 36 times. That's an effort. That's grinding it out. And, you rush the ball, you run the ball over 30 times in a football game, you're going to be exhausted when it's over. But he grinded out 173 yards. And as I said, Laurel went for 255 on the ground, 353 total. That's why they won.
It's always a great segment when you can get the word toted in there.
Toted. He toted the ball, I think 36 times, if I remember from reading the article. 36 times. Oh my God. I can't play 36 holes of golf, let alone run the football 36 times and get hit as often as he got hit. Big game for Ben Hannon. Congratulations to him too. And the Laurel Spartans. They're a team that's willing to pay the price. They have a coaching staff that's getting them better each and every week. And I applaud that.
36 holes of golf in my pool cart. I am walking all 36 holes, Larry. And matter of fact, let's make it 54 on the course. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but nobody's tackling you in those 36 holes. Nobody's sticking their helmet in the middle of your chest when you're running the football. That's a little bit different.
That's right. One question I want to ask you, Larry, regarding this conference, Summit Academy. You have a school like that in baseball, right? Summit Academy is in your league?
Yeah, we did 2 years ago. Last year, we moved up. We voluntarily moved up to 3A. But when we were in 2A, Summit Academy was in the league.
How difficult is that for coaches when you know I can pencil in a win, but how much does that hinder a team's progress?
I don't think it hinders a team's progress, but it's an opportunity for a coach to show some class. You want to be very careful at the high school level not to embarrass the other team. And, it was obvious early in that game that we were going to win. After we scored a few runs, we did not steal any more bases. We were going one base at a time. In games like that, you just don't want to do anything to embarrass the other team. And, I'm very conscious of that. I've coached for 25 years, a bunch of different sports. When it's a mismatch at the high school level, you got to be very careful not to embarrass the other team.
All right. Very good. That is our secondary topic here this week. So somewhere Southside or Union, well, that's going to be your 1 and 2, or Union Southside. We'll figure that out next week. We have Rochester going, and then we'll find out who's right. Larry's Shenango Wildcats, or if my prediction of Laurel Spartans. But somewhere we're going to get another Lawrence County team in there.
Yeah, well, my pick, I can't pick against my Wildcats. I got a bunch of guys that play on that team, so I would never pick against my guys.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Doctober rolls on. We've got the schedule portion of the segments, and that's coming up next right here on Gridiron.
I became an attorney because I believe in hard work, fairness, and human decency. In a word, justice. Our workers' compensation clients deserve justice because in an instant, their hard work turns into hard times when they get hurt on the job. No doubt, life is tough, but so am I. I've been fighting all my life, and I'll keep fighting for you. I'm Joe George, and here in Lawrence County, it's personal.
We're back with you here on Gridiron for our schedule portion of the broadcast. We have a Saturday game, so this first allotment of games are Friday night, and they are all 7 p.m. for Friday night. First off is Aliquippa, 4-0 in the Parkway, 6-0 overall. That tells me that they did not play a week 0 game. And if they did, they had a bye somewhere along. But in any event, and they are at Newcastle, which is 0-4, 0-7, again, a Parkway Conference matchup. Larry, it's a chance for Newcastle to show some pride, take the field. As you say, they're going to show up for sure.
Yeah, they'll play hard. They always do. But, Aliquippa may be the best team in the WPIAL at any classification. So that's a tall order for the Hurricane this week.
Yeah. Laurel 1-2 in the Big 7, 2-5 overall at Southside, 3-0, 7-0. Laurel coming off that huge 35-12 win over Northgate, breathed life into their postseason hopes last week. Probably, might have ruined the postseason aspirations for Northgate, but here you go. Laurel's going on the road for a big test.
Listen, the way Laurel plays football too, if they can run the ball, and they always seem to be able to run the ball, and use clock while they're doing it, and limit the possessions of Southside, and maybe get a couple turnovers. Again, if Kolton Carlson has another big game with 5 sacks, Laurel's capable of winning this game. They're an underdog, but they're capable.
Yeah. Okay, Mohawk 4-0 in the Midwestern Athletic Conference, 6-1 overall at Freedom, which is 1-3 in league, 2-5 overall. We talked about this in between segments. I'm not sure if Tim McCutcheon would have saw our segments last week or heard the phrase, if not now, when? But last week they got that big goal line stand with a forced fumble, and then one of the first plays, Jay Rona with a 92-yard touchdown pass to Dante Retort. I'm sure the coach could have easily said, hey, if not now, when? And they went out there and did it.
Listen to me. I watched that game on Lawrence County Sportsnet. That was a great football game. Mm-hmm. It looked like that game was turning in favor of Beaver Falls. It's late in the third quarter. They're winning 12-7. They got it first and goal inside the 10-yard line. And the young man from Mohawk, and I'm not certain who it was. I wish I knew, because I would give a shout out to this young man, literally stole the handoff. He jumped the gap. Looks like he stole the handoff, turned the momentum of the game. And the very next play, Rona throws a 92-yard touchdown pass to Dante Retort. And it was a contested catch. Retort was covered, but he went up and he got it. And he made the catch, and he broke a tackle or two and took it 92 yards, completely changed that game. It was a great throw by Rona, of course, who, again, was 9 for 16 for 205, but it was an even better catch by Dante Retort. That was a big-time play, and that kid stood tall, 92 yards, turned the complexion of the entire game.
Yeah, and what a season that Jay Rona had. He's thrown for getting close now to 2,000 yards. It's 24 or 25 touchdown passes, something like that. Only 5 interceptions. But when I tell you 5 interceptions, remember, 3 of them came in the week 0 game against Union.
He has mobility, something that I believe is important for a successful quarterback at any level. His first touchdown pass was to Fadden, 31 yards, and they flushed him out of the pocket. It looked like they were going to sack him. They couldn't get their hands on him. He rolled out to his left and threw a bullet to Bobby Fadden, 31 yards for a touchdown. So, he not only has the arm, he has the vision, he has the legs. The kid's a player. He's a player. That's why that game against Neshannock will be a great football game.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Neshannock 4-0 in the Midwestern Athletic Conference, 6-1 overall, takes to the road at Riverside, 0-4, 0-6. How do you avoid getting caught looking ahead?
They're not looking ahead. The coaching staff in Neshannock isn't going to let that. You said they were going to look ahead last week. They had freedom 35-0. They could have scored 70 points if they wanted to. They went to the reserves late in the game. But again, you got kids who are willing to pay the price in the offseason. They ran the ball for 243 yards and held freedom to 10 rushing yards last week, dominating the line of scrimmage. Anthony Bonner, 3 touchdowns, returned a punt, 62 yards to get it started, and then it had a 58-yard touchdown reception from a name that should be familiar to Lawrence County sports fans, Minnehaha, Lucas Minnehaha, the youngest of the boys. I had both Patrick and Daniel when they were coming through the basketball program. The Minnehawks are warriors, buddy. And young Lucas, he was like the ball boy when these kids were playing, but he's obviously going to be a player moving forward for Neshannock. So Neshannock's not looking forward. Listen to me. They will take care of business against Riverside.
Yeah, a lot of great talks for sure. Larry, is that a thing, getting quote unquote caught looking ahead? Because anytime I talk to a coach and I ask them about the game they're playing, and then you have a game next week that is huge, and they always say, we don't care about next week. We're scheming for this week. But yet, anytime a team may end up losing in any way, whether it's high school, college, pro, they always say they were caught looking ahead. So why is it a thing of quote unquote looking ahead?
Again, I've only coached at the high school level. I've also coached at the college level at Westminster in baseball. I don't see that happening. I don't. What oftentimes happens when Neshannock goes to Riverside, this is Riverside's biggest game of the year. So this kid's play inspired. They would love nothing better in their season than to beat Neshannock because it's a feather in their cap. But I don't see it happening very often, Ronnie. I'm not a big believer of teams looking forward. You got to come ready to play. You got to buckle your chin strap and be ready to play every week. And at the high school level, I just don't see. I haven't seen it happen. Newcastle hoops. I know you get mad when I talk about it, but we were the biggest game on everybody's schedule. Our guys were ready to play. I know I can never say we ever went into a game we weren't ready to play. And if we weren't ready to play during the first time out in the first quarter, Coach Belondo made sure our guys were refocused.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Union 3-0 in the Big 7, 6-1 overall at Northgate, which is 2-2, 4-3. And Larry, I saw Northgate last week against Laurel. The one thing I will caution Union about, of course, it's all predicated on them actually scoring. But when they do score, they do the old school swinging gate, and they have a lot of guys over here. They had the snap, the long snapper, and a guy right under center. And what they did was they faked it. They actually snapped it both times. They scored touchdowns, and they tried to, basically say, all right, it's our 2 guys here against your 2 or 3, and they got stopped both times, which I think is just a very poor effort. Just quit the Mickey Mouse and get the extra point or try the extra point. But
who did that? Union or Northgate?
Northgate against Laurel. So Union needs to be on the lookout.
Well, look, when you are the superior team, you don't need tricks. You know what I mean? And maybe they do that because they feel that they don't have what it takes to get it done for the extra point or the 2-point conversion. But they're overmatched against Union. 486 total yards. Dane Jonke, another 75-yard touchdown pass. That's like 2 weeks in a row. He's a tight end, isn't he? another 75-yard touchdown pass. Grayson Blakely had a pick six from 35 yards. Mike Gunn had another 50-yard touchdown run. This team is loaded with talent. And, Northgate, maybe they better try something different, because I don't think that stuff's going to work against the Union Scotties.
Like I say, it's all predicated on them scoring to begin with. So you got to get that thought.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right. Slippery Rock, which is 1-4 in District 10, Region 3, Classification 2A, 3A, is going on the road to play Wilmington, which is 1-4, 3-4. Wilmington picked up a double overtime 49-42 win last week against General McLean. So they've got the momentum now. They're playing an inferior team. This is where you a get right spot, if you will.
Wilmington ran the ball for 431 yards last week. 431 yards in a high school football game. Wow. That's execution. Ben Miller, 3 touchdowns. Buddha Book, 2 touchdowns, a couple long ones. Miller had 179 yards. Book had 151 yards. Listen, Wilmington knows how to win. They know how to win. They're playing a lot of young guys too, that as the season progresses I'm certain are getting better under Coach Fillion. So, Wilmington, maybe if they can get to the playoffs, they're not going to be an easy out.
Okay, and our final Football Friday fray, how about that for an alliteration here? Is Elwood City 2-2 in the MAC, 4-3 at Beaver Falls, basically a playoff game, which is also 2-2 in league, but 3-4 overall.
This is a big game for Elwood City. They haven't beaten Beaver Falls since the Reagan administration. So, we're talking about a lot of years here. Elwood City put up 653 total yards last week. 653. Again, we talked about Chris Smiley, the quarterback, 14 for 19, 275, 5 touchdown passes, and Elijah Palmer, McClure, again, 285, 5 rushing touchdowns. I mean, they're going to need that kind of effort if they're going to beat Beaver Falls.
Yeah, Elijah Palmer McCain has been he's been toting the rock like crazy. It hasn't been quite that long, Larry. It hasn't been quite that long. I do the weekly football preview boxes. I want to say, and I have it in my preview, offhand, I want to say it was back when Don Phillips coached Elwood City that they beat Beaver Falls. I'd have to go back and look to be sure, but they do own a.
You better go back and look at that. But it's a big game. Look, and Beaver Falls got to be a little bit disappointed. I said they had that game in the bag against Mohawk, but Mohawk made a great play deep in their own territory, and then another great play immediately thereafter. But this is going to be a really good football game, because this Elwood City, they have some talent. And again, Chris Smiley, Elijah Palmer McCain, these young men are talented. They can put up numbers, and I look for this to be a high-scoring football game, because Beaver Falls can put up some numbers also, mostly with their ground attack.
Yeah, Elwood City going on the road for the first time this season. This is a hell of a way to take to the road for the first time. You're playing a really good football program. Oh, by the way, your postseason lives are at stake more or less as well.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this would be a great game. This will be a really, really good game, but it's not a long road trip. You can probably get from Elwood City, Lincoln High School to Beaver Falls in 15 minutes. So it's not like they're going to be on a bus for a long time. Both of those fields are artificial surfaces, and both of those teams have the ability to put up a lot of points. And I look for a high-scoring game here, and it wouldn't surprise me if Elwood City won this game. But you're right; it's a playoff game for both teams.
Yeah, last week Elwood City put up 62 points against New Brighton, a very inferior New Brighton team. I think winless on the season. The bad thing is they gave up 40 points to them, which is why you're saying that this is going to be a lot of points scored. The 62 points scored by Elwood City ranks 8th in the program's history, 8th or 9th. I want to say it was 8th. The top scoring output for Elwood City goes all the way back to the early 1900s. I believe like maybe 1927, they scored 127 points against Evans City. I'd hate to type that box score. It'd take a week and a half.
I got to believe somebody was running up the score there. 127's about probably 50 too much in a game like that. But Elwood City has turned it around. I commend their coaching staff for, because Elwood City struggled for a long time. And that's why you can't give up on Newcastle football. Elwood City went 2 or 3 years without winning a game, and they got it turned around. And it takes a lot of work. It takes work in the off season. It takes the development of a culture. They obviously have players and coaches who are willing to commit to the type of off season program necessary to give you a chance to be successful. One of my favorite lines came from Jim Valvano. I was a big Jim Valvano fan. And it goes something like this: the correlation between hard work and success is not direct. Just because you work hard does not mean you'll be successful. The correlation is indirect. If you don't work hard, you can't be successful. So you work hard just to give yourself that chance. And I don't care what the sport is. I don't care what the high school program is. If you're not committed, if you're not, as Coach Tomlin likes to say, if you don't have 10 toes in the water about 10 months a year, you're probably not going to have the success that you desire.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, the 650 some odd total yards by Elwood, that might have been a season a few years ago when they were going through their winless times. So that shows you how far they've come. As you mentioned, Beaver Falls, if they do not win this game, Larry, they have to be kicking themselves for losing that overtime game against Neshannock where they went for 2 and did not make it. That could have been a win. Last week when they fumbled the ball inside the 10-yard line to go up 2 scores against Mohawk. Those are 2 games that they could have won. Even if you go 1-1, you're in a good spot here going into this game.
Yeah, there's always a fine line, Ronnie, between a good season and a great season. I've always said that. I've been involved in good seasons and I've been involved in great seasons, and it's a fine line. And there's always a few plays that you can look back on. When they go in your favor, then you have a chance to have a great season. When they go the other way, that great season, doesn't happen. And oftentimes it's always 2 or 3 plays in a season that make the difference. And that's why, we talk about being laser focused. You got to be mentally tough. The ups and downs of a season and the ups and downs in a game, you just can't let it get to you. And you got to be laser focused because you don't know what play it'll be that could make the difference between a good season and a championship season.
Okay, and with that said, we invite you to move forward with us to Saturday. And this is our lone Saturday game, which is Shenango 1-3 in the Big 7, 3-4 at Summit Academy. They are 0-3, 0-7. I found a nifty little nugget on Summit Academy when I was doing my preview boxes. I think they've won 46 total games in the program's history and lost about 176. So that's off the top of my head. I have it in the preview boxes. I don't know how accurate that is. That's what I found online. So you don't want to be their 47th win.
And it won't happen. Coach Graham will have Shenango, the Wildcats, ready. It's hard to play football when you're not winning. You can play baseball and probably still have a little fun, even if you're not winning. You can play basketball and probably have a little bit of fun, even if you're not winning. But if you're not winning in football, man, it is a tough game, and it's hard to keep the spirits up and have fun. I commend those coaches at Summit Academy. They don't have a lot of talent to work with, but yet they're very committed. In baseball, I remember that coach was coaching up 1 through 7, even though the games became one-sided. And I'm sure the football staff does the same thing. It's easy to be a rah-rah guy when you're union, right? And you got a potentially championship team. It's a little tougher to keep the spirits up and make playing the game fun when you're not a winning team like Summit Academy. And, I believe high school sports should be fun. I talk about the 10 commandments of when I was at Newcastle basketball, when I was at Shenango baseball. And number 1 is Wildcat baseball is a lot of fun. If you're not having fun in high school, you shouldn't be there. Something's wrong. And it's hard to have fun when you're Summit Academy and most of these games are blowouts.
Thou shalt not disobey, Larry Kelly. That has
Oh
to
no,
be.
they do all the time, but I still get my say. I still get my 2 cents in. They look at me and say, this guy has more sayings than anybody I ever heard, and I probably do. It's because when you're old and you're as old as me, you hear a lot of stuff, and I tend to repeat it.
Put him on a shirt, Larry. There probably wouldn't be much blank space on that shirt, front or back.
There would be zero blank space on. I don't have a shirt big enough to include all the silly stuff I say.
Summit Academy, let's talk about this real quick. They play on Saturday afternoons. Talent aside, win-loss record aside, the fact that they play Saturday afternoon, what type of an advantage does that give to a team? Because you're playing a team that's used to playing Friday nights at 7 p.m. Now they're playing Saturday, get up real early, get on a bus, 12:30. And again, the answer is, hey, they're playing Summit Academy. They're not very good. But throughout
no, that was a big deal back in the day. I remember when Aliquippa used to play Saturday afternoon games, and Hopewell used to play Saturday afternoon games. And Coach Lindy Laurel, it kind of messed up your schedule, not only for the week that you're playing on Saturday, but for the week after that. And it's an advantage, I think, for a team that plays home games on Saturday, because it does kind of makes the visitors, puts them a little out of kilter in their scheduling and in what they're used to in their internal clock. So, back in the day when you had to play Hopewell and Aliquippa on Saturday afternoon, it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm. All right. Mr. Coach Kelly, anything else you'd like to say?
No, my brother, that's it. You heard everything I have to say today. It's getting close, man. We got some great games coming. I can't wait to see Neshannock and Union. That's going to be a great football game, and that's not the only one. Elwood City, Beaver Falls next week, or I should say Neshannock and Mohawk. I apologize. Neshannock and Mohawk, Union and Southside. These are going to be great games, and they're going to be great. Western Pennsylvania, under the lights, high school football game. It doesn't get any better than that.
Gee, I thought you were going to give us a special or something, like a midweek special, an unexpected gift to Neshannock and Union. Don't get our hopes.
No, that would be a good game. That's a little bit of a rivalry too. I misspoke there. It's going to be Neshannock Mohawk for all the marbles, and these are two really good teams that play a little different style. Neshannock's more of a run the ball team. Union, obviously, they're what did they used to call Air Coryell when he was with the San Diego Chargers. I mean, this is Air Rona, but he has some weapons to throw to. So that's going to be a great game. Union Southside is going to be a great game, and Elwood Beaver Falls next week. Those are two Western Pennsylvania rivals. Those are going to be great games.
Indeed. All right, that is Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. We thank you for joining us this week. Be sure to come on back next week as we do the same again. We'll talk about Athlete of the Week. We'll have another topic in the middle, and we'll talk about our schedule portion as we get closer to the playoffs. We thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here next week on Gridiron.